Okay, good morning, everyone. So I think we can start, and people will join us slowly but surely. So thank you for coming. For those of you who doesn't know me, my name is Dagan Cohen. I'm the senior emissary of the Jewish Agency to Long Island. And basically what we want to do here, we're gonna meet every week, every Thursday, 9:30 for 30 minutes. We're trying to give you the most relevant and accessible information about what's happening now in Israel, hoping that with time the news will be more boring. Every week we'll have a guest that will join me in order to give us another and a different point of view. Today we have Amit with us. Amit is another community Shalich like myself. He went for 2 months to Israel to join the reserves in the war in Gaza. And he actually has a lecture called 2 months of war in 30 pictures. And he's going to share with us a bit of his experience in a nutshell. And if you want to hear more from Amit after we'll finish, you'll have the opportunity to invite him to your communities, and he will be more than delighted to come. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat. We will refer to 2 to 4 questions every time, and don't worry, we will meet again. And as you know, me and Amit are here on the island for you all, walking around your communities, you will be able to meet us. We will start every meeting with the numbers behind the war, which some of you I'm sure that you're aware of, some of you maybe not, and we're trying to explain as much as we can about everything. Then we'll go over the most relevant updates. I will not cover the entire war in Israel. As you know, there's 5 to 6 to 7 fronts that Israel is now fighting. We will choose the most relevant fronts to the current week, and again, try to explain as much as we can. And afterwards, we'll go to have a dialogue with our guest. So we'll start with the numbers behind the war today. So we're talking about January 25th, 2024, the 111 days of the October or the Iron Swords War. Even to this day, we still have 136 people being held hostages by Hamas, more than 126,000 people, Israelis, that are being displaced. And I want to take a minute to explain what the consequences behind that number. Those are people like my family from the north of Israel, like people from the Gaza Strip area, that haven't cooked dinner for 4 months. Now, it doesn't have educational system for more than even 6 months. Like, think about the Israelis, where July and August, summer vacation, then the holidays in September, and then October 7th. And those are the COVID children that weren't in school, were using Zoom just like the children here. So when we're talking about 126,000 Israelis that are being displaced, that have been refugees in their own country, just try to imagine that number that went to live in 1 or 2 rooms in an hotel, didn't have privacy, didn't have routine in a way. And we're talking about people who lost everything on October 7th. And as you keep hearing, one of the goals of this war is to bring them back their sense of security. And they're willing, and they're to make them want to go back, living in their homes. And when we'll talk about Gaza, we're trying to explain what Israel is trying to do in the Gaza Strip area and what is the biggest challenge when we're looking at the north. Unfortunately, we lost in this war since October 7th, 1,434 soldiers, 1,434 soldiers, 24 of them only in the past week. We have more than 4,000 soldiers that have been wounded in different capacities. When you look at a war like the war in Gaza, most of the wounded soldiers are from explosions, which is very different than direct fire. When you get wounded by an explosion, it affects your entire body, limbs, hands, legs, like shells or shutters that went to your body, much severe injuries. And this is a labor that I know that in America and in Israel, we tend to not take as serious as we need to. And I'm not even speaking about the people that got injured in this. So, like a lot of the reservists and the Israelis, after seeing what they seen on October 7th, 8th, and 9th at the beginning of it. If we look about the thing that we succeeded to do for the other side, we know for a fact that we killed more than 9,000 terrorists of Hamas. And I want to explain a minute where do we get this number. In Western armies, you need to report back everybody that you see. And when Israel is saying that we estimated they killed 9,000 terrorists, meaning that at least 8,000 of them or 8,500 of them are soldiers that are terrorists that the soldiers saw in their own eyes with weapons that were fighting against and report back. And there's people that need to calculate those numbers. So as you know, as a Western army in a liberal country, Israel, it's all about transparency. And when Israel said 9,000 terrorists, I think it's a number that we need to take very seriously. It's more than a division. Like it's an enormous amount of terrorists. It is estimated because we know that there are a lot of them in the tunnels underneath Gaza, and then we're not sure how many bodies, how many terrorists we killed. But I know that Hamas is spending a lot of very different numbers, like 25,000 dead. None of them are terrorists. All of them are women and children. So you can count on this number. Since the beginning of the war, Hamas and Hezbollah shot on Israel more than 11,000 missiles. Just think about this number. More than 11,000 on such a small country like Israel. That's huge. That's enormous. And if we speak about the war against Hezbollah has more than 100,000 missiles that they can shoot on Israel, basically anywhere. So try again, one of the things that can explain us why this war is so central, and what exactly we're trying to accomplish. We go quickly to current updates about the last situation, and I'm going to focus on 4 different sections. I'm going to start on the Gaza Strip and what happened there. So basically, Israel now, the IDF, controlling 99% of the north of Gaza. And Amit can share more because I think this is where your battalion served and this is where you've been. As you know, because of the tunnel, the threat is 360. It's all over. So they can surprise us at any moment. But now, basically, we're controlling the territory. We're clearing it from all the hatches and the tunnels. And we have an entire battalion that his job is to make sure that the Palestinians will not go back to the north of Gaza and to threat Israelis. The main fight in those few days in one of the last strongholds of Hamas in the south of Gaza, a city called Khan Yunis. This is a city with a big symbol. This is where Sinwar and Muhammad Dev, the heads of Hamas army, were born. We tend to believe that they are in tunnels underneath Khan Yunis. And just 2 days ago, the IDF launched the biggest attack against the last battalion of Khan Yunis division. We destroyed 3, we have 1 more. And then will be the biggest question, how we will go to Rafiah, which is the last city sits on the border with Egypt, or not. One of the biggest challenges, as you can imagine, is that there's still in Gaza 2 million people that Israel pushed to the corridor that you can see if you look at a map near the Mediterranean Sea in the south of Gaza, and basically they have no other place to go. So now the IDF is fighting and trying not to hit, to avoid from civilian casualties, and this is what makes this war much more slow and precise. But this is where we are in Khan Yunis, and we're getting very close to destroy their almost less abilities to attack the IDF soldiers. I'm worried about the buffer zone that Israel is trying to create in Gaza, which I'm not sure that you heard or not. Basically, until 2005, let's say, Israel always had buffer zones around to protect us from enemies all over. And those buffer zones are central to a small country like Israel, because it means that if the other side will initiate a war, it will be in a buffer zone where you have almost no civilians, then the IDF can protect the people. Since 2005 that we left Gaza, we have no buffer zone anywhere. Go back to Yom Kippur War, The biggest fight was in Sinai and in the Golan Heights that were only conquered in 67. And then the IDF can protect the Israelis without casualties. And since we went out of Lebanon 2000 and from Gaza 2005, we have no buffer zones. What Israel is trying to create is a buffer zone in Gaza, going 1 kilometer into Gaza territory on Palestinian territory. And then this is where the IDF is going to sit and have special operation in Gaza territory. The soldiers, the 21 soldiers that died this week with the explosions of the buildings, this was their job, to make sure that all this territory that we need to make as a buffer zone will be clear of buildings and farms. Basically, they was not supposed to see any enemy in their eyes, and still you saw the damage that one RPG missile going to the right way, the damage that it can do, and we lost 21 soldiers when 2 buildings just collapsed on them. But that job they wanted to do is so essential and important in order to make sure that we fulfill one of the biggest goals of this operation in Gaza is bringing back the sense of security for the people in the southern border. And again, it's important to say the world doesn't like it, and the Biden administration doesn't like it as well, because basically it means that we will take over Palestine territory. Honestly, I think this is what we need to do now. One of the biggest questions is what's going to happen with the Rafiah Gate and the Philadelphia area, which is again in the south of Gaza, very close to Egypt. Basically, we know that through there, a lot of the ammunitions of the Hamas entered through Egypt, bribing the police and the Egyptian soldiers. And when we're talking about the next day in Gaza, the biggest question is who will control this passage? Will it still be Egypt that are not willing to admit that all the ammunition went through there, or will Israel have some sort of a stronghold? We can control it from Gaza, but it will mean that we will need to stay inside of Gaza. So this is one of the biggest questions. This is about Gaza territory. When we looking at the north, and again, my entire family is from there. One of the biggest threat that we have now, and I was growing up, I was in the northern border on the fence with Hezbollah. It's a threat that we never had before. Is a direct hit by an anti-tank missiles shooting on civilians' home. And only 2 weeks ago, the family of one of my classmates in school, his mother and his brother were killed in Kfar Yuval from a direct hit. This border is much bigger, is much wider, and it's very hard to protect in every inch of it when all you need to do is come with an anti-tank missile and just shoot it on buildings. This is a very big threat. All of us need to remember that at the end of the day, Hezbollah is 10 times stronger than Hamas. He had 40 years. If Hamas had 20, he had 40 years to prepare for the war against Israel. And basically now in Israel, there is a buffer zone that is inside Israel, which is all of those settlements that are being displaced. And we need to have assurances in order for people to go back to their homes. If you will need to imagine, take the border that you have with Canada or Mexico, think that in any point in this border, people can just shoot snipers or an anti-tank missile on your homes. This is now the biggest threat in the north. My take is that it will have to end in some sort of a diplomatic decision. We can go and fight in Lebanon against Hezbollah. I'm not sure what the outcome will be unless we're gonna hold the territories inside Lebanon. One of the interesting things when you look at the north is the paradox. Israel doesn't want a war with Lebanon. We have nothing to get from that. The Lebanese people doesn't want a war with Israel. They don't care about Israel. The Lebanese government doesn't want a war with Israel. They don't care about Israel. The only one that maybe wants a war is Iran, using Hezbollah as a proxy. But everybody around this conflict said, we do not want a war, stop fighting. And basically, this is the paradox, that we can find ourselves in a very big and massive war with Hezbollah, that Lebanon and Israel will die in a war that nobody wants, but Iran that sits 2,000 kilometers far from it. Going to the hostages, one of the things that we see in Israel in the past, I would say 2 days, is very massive demonstrations in both sides, which it's very interesting. the families of the Israeli hostages in the last 2 days went to the Kerem Shalom passage, where, again, paradoxically, a lot of supply trucks going from Israel to Gaza, and they stopped it. And they're not letting those trucks go inside Gaza, saying there's no reason that we will give them supply when our families are there and we don't even know if they got the medicine or not. Which is, again, it's a very aggressive move. I must say, I can see the sense behind it. And one of the most interesting things is that yesterday was Palestinians in Gaza making a protest against Hamas, saying, bring back the Israeli hostages, we want to go back to our homes. Hopefully, that with time, it will get bigger and bigger and bigger in the other side. One of them, going to the last subject for today, tomorrow noon, Friday, the Hague Supreme Court of Justice is supposed to have its decision about whether Israel is committed as genocide in Gaza. It's a prosecute led by South Africa. Basically, they can have all sorts of decisions. Israel is part of the international treaty against genocides. So if this Supreme Court will decide that Israel is committing a genocide, meaning Israel needs to stop, commit acts of genocide, meaning stopping the war, Israel can choose to obey or not to obey. If we choose not to obey, they cannot do anything real to stop us, but it's not good. Basically, it's going against the international law and against the UN. And there is a big, like, the United States are protecting us in the UN all the time, and we cannot push it more than we need to. So it is a very big and critical decision for Israel, even though people who understand more than me said it's probably not going to happen. They're not going to say it's a genocide. The fact that this trial even happened gave the South African to have a very bizarre things to say about Israel, but he also gave us the option to defend ourselves. It was the first time, but I would say in Israeli eyes, tomorrow noon, it's a very important decision that a lot of the Israelis look their eyes on and hoping that the justice will make. And the world will not say that we committed a genocide. After that, let's say just a week ago, we find a tunnel that we know that the Chisinor were there, and we saw cages that it was held, the Israeli hostages protecting him. So then they need to decide who's committing genocide or not. This is the short update about things that are happening now in Israel. And again, next week, hopefully, there will be more boring news. But if not, we'll be able to elaborate more. And now I wanted to introduce Amit, that, as I told you, went to Israel to join his reserve battalion for 2 months in Gaza. And we're going to speak with Amit, and with every guest, we're going to have about 4 main subjects that we will choose before. With Amit, it's going to be about his decision to fly back and join his reserve battalion on October 9th, I think. But how was the process of it, which is, you can imagine, it's a hard decision going from here to there. The recruitment to the IDF and the preparation for a war, the war in Gaza, and maybe the hardest decision is to come back here to Long Island. And I will say again, it's going to be in a nutshell. And if you want to hear more from Amit, we will share his contact information, and feel free to invite him to your communities. Amit, hi.
Hi, thank you, Dagan. So yeah, as Dagan said, I'm also here, Shalich to Long Island, and part of the Center for Israel and the Israeli delegation here. So you were talking about like October 7, and everyone knows where he was on October 7. So of course I was here, and I was started on October 7. I was in New Orleans, and of course right away I knew I need to come back. And the moment I landed back here in New York, so I got the message from my unit that everyone is being recruited, and can I make it and come and join them? And you were talking about the decision. So I was thinking about it. Listen, we have an important mission here as well. But the moment they told me that everyone is recruited, like being recruited, and we need to like they need my help there. So I just knew it, that before a shaliach, before a person, I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier of the state of Israel, and that's where I need to be. And I think we really need to understand that this decision was not unusual or unordinary, and it's just one of many other people who has a lot of different life path, especially the reserve, of course, that have their own life, and just left everything and joined the fighting in Gaza. And
Maybe it's
that's
important to say that just to understand the Israelis' DNA, in the first month and a half of the war, there were no spot in any flights to Israel. The flights from the United States to Israel was full for a month and a half ahead. Like think about a country that is in a war, just like we had, and people want to come in and not running away. And I think this is the mentality of the Israelis. Our DNA tells us we need to put on uniform and do whatever we can do.
definitely the flight that I took was full. I barely managed to find a seat on the flight, and then I landed in Israel on October 11 afternoon, and October 12 I was already in the bed joining my unit, and like I I asked them like how did we do on the numbers, how many people recruited, because usually it's not that easy to recruit everyone. So they told me we're on 140% capacity, which is incredible, and you can see nothing but like people who are very determined to do the mission, nothing but smiles, people that are feeling the need and standing up to that. And we first started up north, that's where we were stationed, and then we were told that we need to join the southern front and the forces there. And after 3 weeks of practicing and trainings, we got to the moment that we needed to go in. And in the time I spent in Gaza, um, it was it was incredible. I mean, it's not, of course, it's a war, and if you can, if you want to try and imagine how a war looks like, you've seen it in the movies. It's the same. But what was different than movies that I saw before I went in to this war, that's my first war, is the attitude of the people. You can see I was seeing some like soldiers from different units that were nearby us, and every time you saw them, like every time I met them, I saw nothing but smiles, nothing but high spirit. Not because like I don't know, we're facing enemy and destroying it, and we do a dirty job. That was not the reason. That actually was the hard part. Like what gave them this smile is this feeling of we're protecting our own brothers and sisters. We took a major hit, but now we're there to make sure that this thing would never happen again. And this fulfills us when like all of us has families at home, wives, children, babies. Some of them, like some of the soldiers that served with me, their wife was on their ninth months of pregnancy. But um, when I went out, one of the officers with me went to the labor room when his wife was there. But again, nothing but smiles, nothing but high spirit. And I think, as Dagan said before, that's something else. And when people are escaping from war, we're facing it. We don't want it, but we know when we have to be there. And after 2 months in service in the reserve forces, I knew that as much as my mission there is important, if I can find someone who can do my job in Israel, I'll manage to come back here, because here it's way more difficult to find someone to do the job. And I told the guy for the first moment that I think that being here, or like staying here, is the harder decision than going back to Israel. So coming back was also a very hard decision. But this kind of events, this kind of opportunities that are given to me to come and speak to you guys, that's what makes me feel that this was the right decision. And by talking to you, and by you further on inviting me, and also knowing my story, and maybe share it with your friend, that's a very good impact, that and make, making sure that this was an actual right decision. So that was my talk in a nutshell.
I mean, thank you. And again, we're happy that you went, and we're even happier that you came back safely. As you can imagine, Amit's story is much more interesting. His brother-in-law is serving with them in Gaza. His sister got injured during the time, just being an Israeli from a rocket ship. She's fine, but I think you had the entire Israeli experience in 2 months. And again, we're here, like we're the emissaries of your community, so feel free to invite us. Amit, for conclude, we have two questions that I want to ask you before we wrap it up. As someone who was there, there's a lot of news medias that are saying that Israel trying to kill civilians, just like the trial that we see in Hague. The Israel intentionally harming civilians, Gaza civilians?
That's a fair question. So there's this say that I've heard when I was in Israel, that if we wanted, the war was ended on October 8th, by striking from above, and we have the ability to really wipe out the whole place. But I want to tell you a short story. We have the time. A
Yeah,
very short story
sure.
that I experienced. That when I was actually not in Gaza, I was in the headquarters of my brigade, and there was like a video shoot of an aircraft that was targeted on a car with 4 terrorists, that we knew for fact that they're terrorists. And we saw them approaching towards, like, going away from our forces and going towards civilian people in civilian area. And we did know for sure that the strike of the aircraft will not harm the civilian area. And even though that we knew for fact that these are 4 terrorists, we saw their ammunition from above, and but we also knew that they're getting closer to a civilian population. This mission was aborted. I don't know, these terrorists could harm Israeli soldiers later, unfortunately. But that's our mentality, that's our DNA. I mean, we won't harm any civilian. If it's, I mean, we will do anything we can to not harm civilians. That I can tell for sure.
Thank you. And we'll just add for all of you, when you hear those news, or just imagine that the idea of soldiers at the end, it's us, like it's me and Amit. And it's our friends, so think, will we able to hurt women, children? And I'm sure we'll know the answer. And one last thing, Amit, to wrap it up, what do you think that the role of the Jewish community is here, now that you saw both sides?
So the support that we felt from the Jewish community in the United States was incredible. It goes to like donations. It goes to supplies such as warm clothing and underclothing and medical equipment. So, and we feel like someone, I mean, of course, besides the state of Israel and the idea, someone got your back. And it goes to the supplies and donation, but it also applies to letters from kindergartens or elementary schools that we got, and we hanged on our uh, um, armored vehicles, the tanks, whatever. So it feels like we're not alone, and that's, I think, the most important thing beyond the supplies, beyond like the material things. This feeling of we're together.
Amazing. Thank you. If people want to reach out to you, how can they do it?
So I can write down on the chat, and also whoever got an email about the event, we can share with you an email with all my details and a short brief about the talk itself. So if you feel like you want to reach out, you can reach out through Dagan to me, and we can make it happen.
Amazing. Thank you, Amit. And thank you all for being here with us today. I want to finish our conversation today with an optimal message, maybe. I know things look hard, but just like Amit shared, and the Israelis are resilient, just like the Jewish people are here are resilient. We know what are we fighting. This is a war of no choice. We have no other choice but fighting it. We had a press conference today of Idan Amedi, was a very famous singer and an actor in Israel, played his father, maybe you know him. That was severely injured, lost friends, and came out of the hospital today. And he shared more about the situation in Gaza, the spirit of the soldiers. He also say things that are not been approved to publish yet, but basically he says we came in the right time. If we would wait some more, the abilities will becoming much stronger, and they could kill more Israelis and threat us even farther. So we know why we're fighting this war, and in order for all those wounded, killed, displaced, all those casualties of October 7th and the days after to have a meaning, Israel have to get the job done. We just have no other choice. And for now, right, for January 25th, Israel controlling the situation. We're controlling it in Gaza, we're controlling it in Lebanon, we're controlling it in the West Bank. The majority of Israelis trying to go back to some sort of a routine will go to Israel. You will feel that in the moment you will land in Ben Gurion Airport. So we're in much better situation than we were 4 months ago, and it's getting better every day. All of us need to have patience and faith in each other and the Jewish people, I think, and in Israel and in the ideas. So thank you all, and we'll see you next Thursday, 9:30. Have a great weekend.
Thank you again. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.